The lawyer's hands trembled as he read my father's will aloud. Everything goes to Victoria. My stepmother smiled like a cat that caught the canary. What she didn't know was that in exactly 6 months, that smile would be wiped off her face forever, not by revenge, but by something far more powerful, the truth she thought she'd buried with my father. My name is Emma, and this is the story of how I lost everything, then gained something far more valuable. My childhood was like something out of a storybook. My father, Richard Thornton, owned a successful chain of bookstores across 3 states. But more than his business success, what I remember most is his laughter. Deep, genuine, the kind that made you feel safe in the world. My mother, Sarah, was the heart of our home. She painted watercolors, volunteered at the children's hospital, and made our house feel like a sanctuary. Every Sunday, we'd have breakfast together in the garden. Mom would make her famous blueberry pancakes. Dad would read passages from whatever book had moved him that week. I was their only child, and I knew I was loved. Not spoiled, loved. There's a difference. When I was 16, everything shattered. Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, that's all they gave her. She fought with grace and dignity, never complaining, always thinking of us. I remember holding her hand in the hospital, her skin paper-thin, her voice barely a whisper. "Take care of your father, Emma," she said. "He's stronger than he looks, but he'll be lost without me. Give him time. Let him heal. And when he's ready to love again, let him. Promise me." I promised, even though the words tasted like ash in my mouth. She died on a Tuesday morning in April, with cherry blossoms blooming outside her window. I was 17. My father was 45. And our world went dark. For 2 years, Dad and I navigated our grief together. He threw himself into work. I focused on getting into college. We healed slowly, the way broken bones heal, painfully, but surely. Then, at a business conference in Chicago, Dad met Victoria. She was beautiful, there's no denying that. 38 years old, with glossy black hair, sharp cheekbones, and a smile that could light up a room or cut through steel, depending on what she needed. She worked in marketing consulting, though I never quite understood what that meant. Dad was smitten. After years of gray, here was color. After silence, laughter. I was 19, starting college, and I wanted him to be happy. I remembered Mom's words, "Let him love again." They dated for 8 months. She was charming, attentive, always saying the right thing. She'd bring me coffee when I studied. She'd compliment Mom's paintings that still hung on our walls. She asked about my classes, my dreams, my life. "I'm not trying to replace your mother," she told me once, her hand on mine. "No one could. I just want to make your father happy again. Is that okay?" How could I say no? They got married in a small ceremony when I was 20. I was the maid of honor. I smiled in all the photos. I meant it then. The changes started small. First, Victoria suggested redecorating. "The house needs new energy," she said. Mom's paintings came down, replaced by modern art that looked like expensive accidents. The garden Mom loved became a minimalist Zen space with imported stones. Then came the distance. Dad started missing our Sunday breakfasts. He was always busy, always in meetings that Victoria had arranged. When I called, she'd answer his phone. "He's resting, sweetie. I'll have him call you back." He rarely did. But I was in college, building my own life. I told myself this was normal. Newlyweds need space. Dad was happy. That's what mattered. I was so naive. The first real crack appeared during my senior year of college. I had been working on my thesis about community literacy programs. Dad had always promised to fund a small nonprofit I wanted to start after graduation. Mom's dream had been to open free libraries in underserved neighborhoods, and I wanted to honor that. When I brought it up over dinner, Dad looked confused. "Honey, we talked about this. The business needs that capital for expansion. Victoria's been helping me understand the market better. We can't tie up funds in charity projects right now." My stomach dropped. "But you promised. You said when I graduated." "Plans change, Emma." His voice was gentle but firm. "You're young. You need to build a career first, earn your own money. It's good for character." Victoria smiled sympathetically. "Your father's right, sweetie. You can't rely on handouts forever. It's time to be independent. Handouts. From my own father. But that was just the beginning. 6 months after I graduated, Dad started having health problems. Fatigue. Dizziness. Memory issues. Victoria took over managing everything, his schedule, his medications, his business affairs. She became the gatekeeper to my own father. He needs rest, Emma. Your visits stress him out. Maybe come by less often. Less often became once a month. Then once every 2 months. Phone calls went unanswered. Emails got one-line responses clearly written by Victoria. I tried to visit unannounced once. Victoria met me at the door. This isn't a good time. Your father's sleeping. It's 2 in the afternoon. He sleeps a lot now. You'd know that if you came around more. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I pushed past her and found Dad in his study, staring at papers he didn't seem to understand. He looked older, confused, almost hollow. Dad. He looked up, and for a moment, I wasn't sure he recognized me. Emma? When did you get here? Just now. Dad, are you okay? Have you seen a doctor? Victoria appeared in the doorway. Of course he has. I take excellent care of him. But you're upsetting him. I think you should go. Dad, tell her I'm not leaving. Tell her. Victoria's right, sweetheart. I'm tired. Maybe next time. I left in tears. Over the next year, Dad's condition deteriorated rapidly. Victoria had him sign power of attorney, making her the sole decision-maker for his medical and financial affairs. She hired new lawyers, new accountants, all her people. Dad's old friends and business partners found themselves blocked out. I tried to get help. I called Adult Protective Services, but Victoria was 3 steps ahead. She had doctor's notes, medication records, everything documented. His daughter is having trouble accepting his decline, she told them. It's sad, really. She's lashing out at me because she can't accept that he's getting older. I was 25 years old, watching my father slip away, and there was nothing I could do. Then came the call I'd been dreading. Dad died on a Monday morning. Heart failure, the death certificate said. He was only 52. I wasn't there when it happened. Victoria said it was sudden, that he went peacefully in his sleep. She'd already made all the funeral arrangements by the time she called me. I know you're grieving, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. But your father wanted a small, private service. Just close family. I am close family. I'm his daughter. Of course, dear. I meant immediate household. He wouldn't want a scene. She didn't invite me to my own father's funeral. I showed up anyway. I had to say goodbye. Victoria's face when she saw me walk into the chapel was a masterpiece of controlled rage wrapped in a mask of concern. Emma, darling, what a surprise. How thoughtful of you to come. I ignored her and walked to the casket. Dad looked peaceful at least. I placed Mom's favorite photo next to him, the 3 of us at the beach, all smiling, all together. Victoria tried to remove it. I stopped her hand with a grip that made her wince. Don't. You. Dare. We buried him next to Mom. I was the only one crying. The reading of the will came 1 week later. I sat in the lawyer's office, a lawyer I'd never met, one Victoria had chosen. She sat across from me, dressed in black, playing the grieving widow perfectly. The lawyer cleared his throat. The last will and testament of Richard Thornton is quite straightforward. Written 6 months ago, properly witnessed and notarized. 6 months ago. When Dad could barely remember my name. I leave my entire estate, including all business holdings, properties, investments, and personal possessions, to my beloved wife, Victoria Thornton. She has been my rock, my compass, my salvation in dark times. To my daughter Emma, I leave nothing, as she has made it clear through her absence and animosity that she wants no part of this family. The room spun. That's a lie. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I was never absent. She kept me away. And my father would never. The will is legally binding, the lawyer interrupted. Signed, witnessed, notarized. If you wish to contest it, you may, but I should warn you, the estate will fight any challenge vigorously, and these battles are expensive and rarely successful. Victoria's hand covered her mouth, her eyes wide with false shock. Oh, Emma. I had no idea Richard felt this way. I tried to bridge the gap between you two, but I'm so sorry. She wasn't sorry. She was triumphant. I had no money for lawyers. No evidence of coercion. No witnesses to the isolation she'd orchestrated. Dad's old friends had all been pushed away. His business partners had been bought out or forced out. I was alone. Victoria got everything. The house I grew up in. The business my father built. The future he'd promised me. Even my mother's paintings, her jewelry, the family photos, all of it now belonged to this woman who'd spent 5 years systematically erasing me from my father's life. I walked out of that office with nothing but the clothes on my back and my mother's wedding ring, which I'd kept safe since her death. The next 3 years were the hardest of my life. I worked 3 jobs, waitressing, tutoring, and freelance writing, just to afford a tiny studio apartment. I ate ramen and rice. I gave up cable, entertainment, everything that wasn't essential. My college friends drifted away. Who wants to be around someone so broke, so bitter, so broken? Meanwhile, Victoria lived like a queen. I'd see updates sometimes, through mutual acquaintances or social media before I blocked it all. She'd sold Dad's bookstores to a national chain for millions. She'd renovated the house, throwing lavish parties. She'd started dating a city councilman. She was living her best life on the ashes of mine. The anger consumed me for a while. I fantasized about confronting her, exposing her, destroying her the way she'd destroyed me. But what could I do? She'd won. She'd played the game perfectly, and I'd been too naive to even realize we were playing. Slowly, painfully, I let it go. Not forgiveness, I'm not that evolved. But acceptance. I couldn't change the past. I could only build a future. I started volunteering at a literacy nonprofit, teaching adults to read. It didn't pay, but it fed something in my soul. I remembered Mom's dream, Dad's Sunday morning readings. I couldn't start my own nonprofit, but I could honor their memory this way. One of my students was an elderly man named Marcus. He'd worked as a janitor for 40 years at a law firm, never learning to read because of childhood trauma. At 72, he decided it was time. It's never too late to reclaim what was stolen from you, he told me during one session. Even if what was stolen was your own voice. I taught him to read. He taught me something more valuable, resilience. Time passed. The wound scabbed over, though it never fully healed. I made peace with a smaller life, a quieter existence. I dated occasionally, never seriously. I moved to a slightly better apartment. I adopted a cat named Pancake, after Mom's Sunday breakfasts. I survived. And then, 3 years and 2 months after my father's funeral, my phone rang. Is this Emma Thornton? Yes. Who's calling? My name is Robert Chen. I was your father's lawyer, his real lawyer, the one he worked with for 20 years before his illness. I need to meet with you immediately. It's about your father's actual will. My heart stopped. What? Not over the phone. Can you come to my office today? It's urgent. And Emma, bring identification. You're going to need it. I took the bus across town to a building I remembered visiting once as a child. The elevator ride felt like ascending to another dimension. Robert Chen was 70-ish, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. On his desk sat a manila envelope, yellowed with age. Emma, I owe you an apology. I've spent 3 years trying to find you. Victoria made it nearly impossible. She had your contact information changed, your mail redirected. It wasn't until you started volunteering at the Patterson Literacy Center that I finally got a lead. Marcus is my brother-in-law. He told me about you. Marcus. My student. What is this about? Your father came to see me 8 years ago, right after he married Victoria. He was already having concerns. Nothing concrete, just instincts. He created a second will, a true will, and he hid it in a safety deposit box that only I knew about. He slid the envelope across the desk. He set up specific conditions. This will was only to be executed if certain circumstances occurred, if he became mentally incapacitated, if you were isolated from him, if Victoria tried to claim everything. He included a provision that I had to wait 3 years after his death to give you this, He wanted to see if Victoria would reveal her true nature or if his concerns were unfounded. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in my father's handwriting, dated 7 years ago, when his mind was still clear. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. I pray you never see this letter, that my suspicions about Victoria prove wrong, that this document gathers dust in Robert's office until we're all gone and it doesn't matter anymore. But if you are reading this, then she's done what I feared she would. She's isolated you. Pushed you away. Taken everything. And I'm so sorry I couldn't stop her. You're wondering how I knew. How I could have known and still stayed with her. The truth is complicated. 6 months after we married, I discovered she'd been researching me long before we coincidentally met. She targeted me deliberately, a widower with money and a trusting daughter. I hired a private investigator and learned she'd done this twice before. Different names, different cities. She marries grieving men, isolates them from their families, and takes everything. I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She cried, admitted to her past, said she'd changed, that she truly loved me. And God help me, Emma, I wanted to believe her. I was lonely. I was weak. But I'm not a fool. I created this failsafe. In this envelope, you'll find the deed to a property in your name only, the small cabin by Lake Morrison where we used to vacation. I bought it quietly, through a trust, before Victoria knew. It's yours. It's been generating rental income, managed by Robert, held in escrow. You'll find approximately $400,000 waiting for you. You'll also find shares in the bookstore business, transferred to a separate corporation in your name before I married Victoria. They are minority shares, but they are worth something. And they come with a poison pill. Any sale of the business requires your approval. If Victoria sold the stores, she did so illegally. Finally, and most importantly, you'll find evidence. The private investigator's reports. Documentation of Victoria's past. Proof that the will she presented was forged or coerced. I left markers in my real will that don't appear in any copy she could have altered. Take this to the district attorney's office. The DA is an old friend. His name is Joseph Brennan. Tell him I sent you. He'll know what to do. Emma, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I let her into our lives. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this pain. But I want you to know that every day I spent with Victoria, I thought of you and your mother. Every time she isolated me from you, a part of me died. The man she kept locked in that house wasn't really me, just a shell, drugged and confused and lost. The real me, the me who read to you on Sunday mornings, who cheered at your graduations, who loved you more than anything in this world, that me never stopped fighting for you. This is my last fight. My final gift. Use it well. Not for revenge, your mother would hate that. But for justice. And then, my darling girl, use it to build the life you were meant to have. Open those libraries. Help those kids. Be the light your mother was. I love you forever. Dad. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 3 years of poverty, of grief, of believing my father had abandoned me, and all along, he'd been protecting me. There's more, Robert said gently. He pulled out another file. Your father was being systematically poisoned. Not enough to kill him quickly, but enough to cause cognitive decline. After his death, I had his medical records independently analyzed. The medication Victoria claimed the doctors prescribed? Never authorized. The symptoms he experienced? Consistent with long-term exposure to certain sedatives and cognitive suppressants. She murdered him. We believe so. But it was slow, subtle, hard to prove definitively. However, combined with the forged will, the illegal sale of company assets, and her history of fraud in other states, we have enough. What happens now? Robert smiled, the first real smile I'd seen in years. Now? Now we burn her world down. Legally, properly, and completely. The district attorney's office moved fast. Victoria was arrested on a Tuesday morning, the same day of the week my mother died. Poetic, in a way. Fraud. Forgery. Elder abuse. Financial exploitation. And 1 count of suspected murder, though they couldn't quite prove it beyond reasonable doubt. But they didn't need to. The other charges would put her away for 20 years. I watched from the gallery as she was led into court in handcuffs. She saw me. Our eyes met. She mouthed, "You bitch." I mouthed back, "Karma." The trial was swift. Victoria's expensive lawyers couldn't argue with documents, signatures, forensic evidence. Her two previous victims came forward, one from Nevada, one from Oregon. Different names, same story. Charm, isolation, theft. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge showed no mercy. "Mrs. Thornton, you are a predator who exploited grief and trust for personal gain. You destroyed families, stole futures, and potentially ended a life. I sentence you to the maximum penalty under law, 25 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Victoria aged 10 years in that moment. The legal fallout took months to sort out. The sale of Dad's bookstores was reversed. Victoria had forged my signature on documents requiring my approval as minority shareholder. The buyers were unhappy but got their money back. I sold the stores properly, to a consortium of local booksellers who promised to keep Dad's vision alive. The house, my childhood home, reverted to the estate, which meant to me. I walked through it one last time. It felt like a museum of someone else's life. Victoria had erased every trace of my family. I sold it. I couldn't live there. Too many ghosts. But I kept Mom's paintings. I tracked them down, bought them back from the collectors Victoria had sold them to. They cost a fortune. Worth every penny. The cabin by Lake Morrison became my home. Small, peaceful, surrounded by pine trees and water. I renovated it slowly, carefully, making it a place of healing. The money, between the inheritance, the business sale, the rental income, came to about $3.2 million after taxes and legal fees. I could have retired. Traveled the world. Lived in luxury. Instead, I did what Mom and Dad always dreamed of. The Thornton Literacy Foundation opened 2 years after Victoria's conviction. We built our first free library in the same neighborhood where I'd volunteered, where Marcus had learned to read. We named it the Sarah Thornton Memorial Library. We've since opened 8 more across 3 states. Each one has a children's section with Mom's paintings on the walls. Each one has a reading room where volunteers read aloud on Sunday mornings, just like Dad used to. Marcus works for the foundation now. So do 3 of my other former students. We employ 40 people, help thousands of kids and adults every year. I still work 3 days a week as a reading tutor. Not because I have to. Because that's where I found myself again. Last week, a little girl named Sophie checked out her first book without help. She just learned to read. Her smile was pure magic. "Thank you, Miss Emma," she said. "Now I can read to my mom like you read to us." That's what Victoria never understood. She thought the money was the inheritance. The house. The business. The stuff. But the real inheritance was the love. The values. The dream of making the world a little better, a little brighter, one story at a time. She took everything. And by doing so, she gave me something she could never have, purpose. 3 years later, I visited Victoria in prison once. Just once. I needed closure. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Prison had stripped away the polish, the glamour. She was just a woman now, not a monster, not a villain, just a sad, broken person who'd made terrible choices. "Why did you come?" she asked. "To tell you I forgive you." She laughed bitterly. "You don't mean that." "I do. Not because you deserve it. But because holding on to anger was destroying me. Forgiveness isn't for you, Victoria. It's for me. You won. You got everything back. Why rub it in?" I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to tell you something Dad told me once. People who can't love always think life is about winning. People who can love know it's about giving. Spare me the philosophy. You had 5 years with my father. You could have loved him, been part of a real family. We would have accepted you. I was ready to accept you. But you chose greed over belonging. You chose stuff over connection. And now you have nothing, and you are alone, and you'll die alone. That's not my revenge. That's just the natural consequence of how you chose to live. I stood to leave. Emma. I turned back. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. Not about the money. I'm not sorry about that. But, your father talked about you constantly. Even when I drugged him, even when he couldn't remember much else, He'd tell stories about you. About Sunday breakfasts and books and blueberry pancakes. He loved you so much. And I was jealous. Isn't that pathetic? Jealous of a daughter's love for her father. Yes, I said simply. It is. Goodbye, Victoria. I never went back. Some people think karma is about revenge, watching bad people suffer, seeing them get what they deserve. But that's not really karma. That's just schadenfreude wearing a spiritual costume. Real karma is subtler, truer, more profound. Victoria didn't lose because I destroyed her. She lost because she destroyed herself. Every lie she told, every person she manipulated, every bond she broke, it all built a prison long before the court sentenced her to one. She chose a life of taking, and taking, and taking, until there was nothing left to take and no one left to take it from. I didn't win by getting the money back. Money can be stolen, given, lost, found, it's just paper and numbers. I won by understanding what my parents tried to teach me all along, that the only inheritance that matters is love, that the only wealth that endures is the good we do, that the only victory that means anything is becoming someone who makes the world softer, kinder, more beautiful. My father's last gift wasn't the money. It was the reminder that even when everything is taken from you, they can't take who you are. They can't take your mother's smile in your memory. They can't take Sunday morning sunlight through the garden. They can't take the feeling of a child reading their first words, or the sound of laughter over blueberry pancakes, or the quiet certainty that love is the only thing that survives us. Victoria spent 5 years taking everything from me. And in the end, she took nothing at all. Because everything that truly mattered, she never could touch it in the first place. Karma doesn't chase you. It simply lets you become who you choose to be, and makes sure you live with that choice.